Welcome back to Leeds Lately. In today's video, we're going to be doing a preview of the Leicester game. Now, we don't do too many previews on this channel, but usually we do them when it is a big game. So we did the one against Ipswich, and now we're going to do this one against Leicester City. And I've had a look into the way that Leicester City play, and I'm going to explain a little bit of that to you today so that you know what to look out for and where Leeds might be able to exploit some gaps and weaknesses. So let's just head straight into it. So the first thing we're going to look at is the rest defence of somebody like Leicester City. Now, if you don't know what rest defence is when you have the ball. So say Leicester have the ball in these attacking areas here, and one of our players takes the ball. Your rest defence is these players basically who form this sort of defensive barricade when you're being counter-attacked or when in transition. So usually what you'd see with most sides is that, okay, let's say that you're playing a 4-4-2. A lot of the time, you'll see that a rest defence consists of two centre-backs and a holding midfielder like this, and the rest of the team is up here involved in the attacking phase. But what Leicester do differently is, and as well, before we go on to that, what Leicester do differently, Leeds would do it as a 4-2-3-1, and we have this defensive sort of box that we talk about here. So you'd have your two holding midfielders and your two centre-backs here in this sort of square area here, which allows, again, for having enough numbers back to cover for these things. But what Leicester do differently is they have 5 in their rest defence. And the way that they do it is they have your two centre-backs, one here and one here, and then you have a left full-back in here, which allows this player here to actually be the right full-back. So a lot of the time for Leicester City this season, that's been Ricardo Pereira, the Portuguese full-back, who is really good in this role. He's probably the more competent with the ball, so he's trusted to go into this midfield area, and the other one is made up by the midfield pivot, whoever that might be for Leicester on the day. This then, obviously, as well as having this rest defence here, it allows them to have more options in the attacking area. So you've got your two sort of wide number 10s, so Dewsbury Hall and whoever else might play alongside him in there, with 3 up top as well, with your wingers of Mavididi and whoever else are the wide men here. So it allows you to, when you have the ball in these areas, you have options and you can split these and move across, and they can help out in those attacking areas. But for the most part, they will try to set up this rest defence of 5 players to try and combat any counterattacks. And now Leeds are a very counter-attacking side, and a side that is very good in transition. So the reason that I mentioned this first is because it's going to be important for more of the other things later in this video. So now, in this scenario, we introduce the yellow team, which, of course, will be Leeds in this situation. And the reason that I talked about the rest defence first is because you can see it here. You can see it clearly, those 5 players there. And let's say that Leicester City have the ball and they want to play through the midfield. The way that they have it set up in the midfield is so that they always outnumber their opponents. And that's one of the key principles of Enzo Maresca's philosophy, is that he wants to outnumber his opponents. So let's say that a team against him is playing a 4-4-2, you'd only have 2 midfielders in there, so they'd outnumber them by 1 by having 3 of their midfielders in there. Because Leeds play a 4-2-3-1, we're going to have 2 holding midfielders in here and the number 10 who can drop in and make this a 3 to try and help out these players. They're still going to outnumber you with 4 attacking, not attacking, but it's 4 midfielders, so that's 4 on 3, so there's always a spare man. So let's say that the ball gets played into this man here, this man might press, this man might go over here and mark the options. He's always going to have 1 spare man and 1 spare option. And the idea for Leicester is for them to get that ball as quick as they can through those transition phases when Leeds are pressing them. When they can and when they have a spare man, that's the person they're going to hit. And obviously, if this is somebody like Dewsbury Hall, he's more than capable of making stuff happen. So the ways that Leeds might combat this outnumbering in midfield, if you will, is one of a few ways. So the first thing that Leeds can do to try and outnumber them in this situation is drop the striker in as well. So you go 4 for 4. But if Leeds do that and drop the striker in as well, so there's 4 on 4 in this midfield area and they haven't really got the room to play through, what Leicester might do is actually drop their number 9 in. So they have a striker in here as well. Now, That, of course, makes it, again, outnumbered in midfield. So you have 5 of them in midfield and 4 of us, with even our both strikers dropping in to try and have this sort of tactical chess match in the midfield. And I think this is where this game's going to be won and lost, is in the midfield. We've got players who've been playing excellently recently, and people like Ilya Gruev. So hopefully they have the skill and the tenacity to sort this out. But one of the other ways that Leeds might have to combat this, if they do, if it's sort of a tit-for-tat exchange where we drop Piru in and he has to try and play in midfield just for a little while to try and stop them being able to have an extra man. When they drop in the striker, of course, they've got an extra man again. So the way that Leeds might combat that is sending Ethan Ampadu with Iheanacho, whoever it is for their striker, sending them in here to try and join this and go with this man or this man, so that everybody's lined up and everybody has a man in that midfield. But of course, what that does is it isolates the wingers 1v1 against our fullbacks and allows for this defender to be on his own in the middle. So if suddenly they do manage to break out from midfield through a Dewsbury Hall or someone like that, Leeds are going to be caught a little bit on the break, where these players, these wingers, are 1v1 against our midfielders, against our fullbacks, and that could be a problem for Leeds. But there are some positives from this, because the way that Leeds are able to play at the moment is so strong and so confident, such good passing, and, well, maybe a little bit less of that in the last game, but for the main, Leeds have been really, really good at passing, and in those passing exchanges, opening up space. Now, Leicester, if they lose the ball, of course, I've said that they have this rest defence of these 5 players there. But if they do lose the ball, let's say they lose the ball in midfield to Ampadu, and Ampadu plays it into Gruev, the first thing that they're going to do is actually come forwards to try and counter-press. A little bit like, I explained this when we had Jesse Marsh, if you lose the ball, you then try and win the ball back as fast as possible. So in the first sort of 5 seconds, they're going to go hell for leather trying to win the ball back. And if they can't win the ball back in those seconds, that is when they start to drop back in again. So they'll have this rest defence here and the full back inside like that. But if Leeds do start to break and they manage to break that counter press, that's when Ricardo Pereira will try and run back into his actual position, make a back 4 again, as Leeds are on the break, breaking away from the midfield, trying to create a counter-attack. And I think that's where we're going to catch them. I think we're going to catch them because they're going to try and come at us and win the ball back. But when Leicester have played against other teams, and other teams, even teams who are going to play a low block and are going to play very defensively against Leicester, those teams will still try to play on the break when they win the ball, because that's really what they think is their only chance of scoring. But Leicester, when they counter-press them, are going to have much more success against teams who aren't great at ball playing than they are against Leeds. So Leeds, of course, are very, very good with the ball, and we have such power and promise and flair in our counter-attacking ability that I genuinely think that this is going to be an issue for Leicester, because when they try to counter-press, that is when Leeds are going to spring that trap, and because we're so good with the ball, that is when we are going to be able to actually get at them and potentially exploit the fact that they might only have 3 back when we might have 4 of us charging forwards. So I think that's important to mention, is that Leeds will be able to play in transition in this game, because Leicester are probably going to try and dominate the possession. Enzo Maresca loves to dominate the possession. They've had an average of over 60% possession, I think, all season in every single game that they've played. And realistically, we are going to have to concede some of the possession to them, because that's the way that they play. But if we're clever about it, we can exploit the way that they play by taking the ball off them in midfield areas and trying to break away whilst they counter-press. Because, yes, they've got a 5-man rest defence, which is very, very good. But if you've got players like Somerville, like Nonto, like Jorginho, Piru in these attacking positions, who, not all of them, not maybe Piru, but the other ones, have so much pace that they can hit you and they can go down the sides and the wings and then maybe get the ball across the box to score. The only other thing to mention then really is the way that they play out from the back. So let's reset this slightly, because realistically you would have your goalkeeper, and then the fullback would go into midfield when they're playing out from the back. So Ricardo Pereira goes back into midfield, and you're actually playing with a bit of a back three. Sometimes this fullback will actually push up and give an option as well. So let's say that Leeds have a couple of players in the attack here. That's more like what we're looking at here. So when they play out from the back, the goalkeeper obviously can give that ball to the centre-back, but the goalkeeper, when this player is under pressure, might actually come out of his box and play as basically another centre-back. So he opens up an option for him. The other two will, obviously this fullback could join the midfield. This fullback pushes up forwards as well and makes it almost like a midfield four here, because they're trying to get the ball forward and try and get as many men into midfield as humanly possible. But what that allows for is Leeds to press. But because Leicester are going to play through primarily their central centre-back, so look out for this when you're watching the game. When the central centre-back gets the ball, Leeds are either going to cut off his passing options or just let him have the ball whilst they wait for him to try and play the ball through. But if they do try and press him, that's when the goalkeeper might actually come out of his box and offer him a sideways passing option, in which the goalkeeper might then be able to play that ball into midfield. But again, if Leeds are good enough and quick enough with a press in this situation, Leicester can definitely be caught out. And I just wonder, the one to watch for this game is whether Leicester switch it up slightly because they're playing against Leeds. Because I do feel like everything else will be the same, which I've talked about, but I think this bringing the goalkeeper out of the box, it could cause issues for them, because we've seen actually in the away game, it actually did cause a lot of issues for them, because I felt a lot of the time like they were actually struggling to play out from the back because we were pressing them so high up, and they made a lot of mistakes in those early exchanges. Eventually they got a grip of it and we went on to win the game through that corner. But I do think it's something to watch in this game, is how much they are committed to playing out from the back if we are really putting it on them. So that's my summary of basically what I think Leicester will play like, how Leeds will play against them, and realistically where the battle will be had. And for me, the battle will be had in the midfield in this game, and I think it's a really important battle that Leeds should win. And Gruev and Kamara, Jorginho dropping in, Ampadu maybe coming into the midfield as well. Leeds have got more than enough and are more than capable of winning that midfield battle, but we just need to be careful that we don't leave too much space and too much open space for those wide number 10s like Kieran and Dewsbury Hall and his other sort of counterpart on the other side. It's important that we don't let them have too much space in those areas, because they can really, really hurt you. Leicester are a fantastic side, and what they've done this season is brilliant. Of course, I've watched Enzo Maresca's Coach's Voice video where he talked about through his tactics and stuff to understand a bit more of Leicester's game to get this video. So go and check that out if you want more detail on the way that they play. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I like cracking out the tactics board and getting into it a little bit, and hopefully we can see many signs of what I've mentioned in this video in the game on Friday night, which of course I will be live for, and we'll be talking about that then with live analysis, all that sort of stuff. So join me for the game live on the channel on Friday night, and there'll be a match reaction, of course. So plenty to hit that big red button, get all the way to the end and then I mess up my words. Plenty to hit that big red button for, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on Leeds Lately.